Hey, it's Aaron, the Metal Theologian. So, I'm going to try and do the funk music for, or funk records for Hard Rockers video. I actually started this the other night, so I pulled some out, but my computer crashed in the other room. So, if we do it in here, we can do needle drops anyway. Hopefully it'll be a little bit better. Now, I want to sort of qualify the concept a little bit. The reason I want to do this video is to maybe introduce some people who, like me, are sort of coming from a background of, hard rock or metal, and kind of value that sort of, forward drive and sort of the heaviness, but are interested in funk and at least want to learn about it and maybe eventually even get into it. I love this stuff. As far as my own taste goes these days, especially since I've gotten so into jazz over the last almost 10 years, I tend to really prefer instrumental stuff to a whole lot of vocals. Don't get me wrong, I mean, like, Superfly is one of my favorite fucking records by Curtis Mayfield. And, I have no problem with singers and funk, generally speaking, but I just find myself gravitating towards the jazzier stuff a lot more. The other qualification is, well, if you really hate brass, I'm probably not going to really do much for you. This isn't like a panacea. Brass is heavy, when those instruments were perfected in the 19th century, they were used for, like, the big operas when, Wagner was trying to do shit that was really over the top, and, what's been called the heavy metal of his time, whether you want to call it, I think it's a little bit corny to say, but it's, there's definitely an argument to be made there. If you can, if the sound of, the point though is if, the sounds of trumpets and trombones just rub you the wrong way fundamentally, it'd be like trying to convert someone to Jethro Tull who just hates the sound of a flute. It's just not going to happen. And I actually speak from experience, not as far as Jethro Tull goes, but I actually knew someone in California who just hated anything with a flute in it. And so there were certain records I was like, man, this is great. It was just impossible for him to get past that. So anyway, those things said, the things I'm going to show tend to be more guitar-driven. They tend to be heavier because that's what I'm going for. They also might lean a little bit more towards the jazz end of the spectrum than the soul end of the spectrum because that's just kind of where I am with it these days. So those are my qualifiers. So I've got a couple records real quick that I want to show up front because I promised a couple people I'd show them.
But first.
That's right, but first. This is kind of an obvious one because I want some a little bit fruity flavored, and that ill-fated video the other day had my last strawberry soda shot in it. So today I'm just going to do this, which is a Virgil's cherry cream soda, black cherry cream soda, pardon me. And the fact is, Virgil's is pretty well known. You can probably find this at your local
Trader Joe's.
Probably just your local regular grocery store. I know they have them at Harris Teeter here in South Carolina.
Really?
Yeah, you can definitely get these at anything resembling like a Whole Foods or anything like that. It's not very expensive. And you've probably had the root beer. But this is the black cherry cream soda, which I've had quite a few of, but I'm going to taste it as if I were tasting it with a fresh palate today, which I'm not because I had a cigar before. It's really good. I mean, it sort of has a consistency of a cream soda, and some of the flavor, especially the finish of a cream soda, was sort of a fruity overtone. It really isn't too cherry-y or too cream soda-y, so that either one dominates. The one thing I do find about it is that the cherry taste is a little bit medicine-y. And so, even though I like this soda, it's definitely not the first Virgil's I would recommend. If you don't mind that, if you like the way cough drops taste, you're gonna love this shit. And I kind of do anyway. If, you can go with a little bit of that medicine-y thing, and it doesn't throw you off, you'll probably like this stuff too. But, if there's a little hint of that medicine thing, if that just spoils it for you, then you're not gonna enjoy the stuff. Alright, so anyway, like I said, two records real quick that I sort of promised. First of all, this is my only Eloy record. LJ was talking about this band not long ago. And this is actually their very first record, which is pretty much a hard rock record. Definitely some prog elements, but a lot more on the hard rock side than the prog side. And what it's kind of known for, I feel like I'm so far away from the camera. Is this okay?
What? Yeah, it's fine. I can zoom too.
What this one's known for is that it has the sewer cover. So, like, you open that up like that, and it's like there's shit down in the bottom there. I don't know if it's supposed to be a sewer or a trash can or what the hell it is. I think it's a sewer. It's kind of looks like cobblestones, but yeah, that's how it is. This is on the Phillips label. I don't exactly know the provenance of this one, whether it's legit or not. I don't think it's actually an original. Although all that shit is on German on the inside. But this is a fantastic fucking record. It was very hard to get for a long time, but there's a label that did a reissue of just kind of recently. I want to say Long Hair, but I don't know if that's true. It's escaping me right now. But anyway, it's a record that's well worth checking out. I came to Eloy kind of late. I actually remember seeing the records around the 80s. And I got rid of them, I always ignored them for no good reason that I can ascertain in hindsight. Except that I think in my head I somehow confused them with ELO. Which is grossly unfair, but that's the way it goes. Then for Lee, Mr. Noise Spectrum, I promised I'd show this one. This is the Flag of 80 by Creator. And this is actually... what fucking year is this? Yeah, 1986, that's what I thought it was. This is actually an old release, it's a 6-track EP. And it has a Flag of Hate, Endless Pain, and Tormentor, and Total Death off the first full length. Endless Pain, obviously. And then it also has two other songs called Take Their Lives and Awakening of the Gods. This is a Combat Press, so I don't know what kind of distribution this might have gotten in Canada or frankly elsewhere about the world. But I think my other two Creator records are Noise releases, or one's a Combat and one's a Noise. But in any case, this is not a recent one, it's an older one. Alright, so anyway, this is the record I was going to close with the other day, but since I needle dropped this yesterday, I might do it again at the end because it's that good. But this is the Purple Image record. This is actually a reissue on one of Wawa's affiliated labels, and this is a, I mean, this is really, it sounds like a 70s hard rocker. If this is too funk for you, then you're probably wasting your time. Because this is just heavy guitar driven. It's a very forward beat, you know, like a rock type of beat, as opposed to sort of like backbeat, sort of the more dancey thing you get in a lot of funk stuff. And, I mean, just look at that fucking psychedelic album cover. This thing is just great. I actually stumbled across this relatively recently myself, and I just ripped my fucking face off. Now, so there are a couple big ones that I need to talk about, and one of them might surprise you a little bit, but one of them is actually Miles Davis, and specifically his 70s stuff, but not even just his 70s stuff, but his well into the 70s stuff, okay? Because you have records like this that people extol as like, you know, this landmark and like fusion and shit like that. I mean, that's a fine record. I like In a Silent Way better myself. I like On the Corner better. But especially after On the Corner, once he sort of settled into that vibe with the heavier guitars, he started using the wah-wah effects on the trumpet and doing all that other sort of rockish stuff that really pissed off the jazz critics. He just made some fucking heavy records that were really early ones for me as far as really, not just liking funk, but really starting to get into it and sort of see like the layers of it and sort of, you know, what the medium could be, you know? So it's kind of ironic that, you know, he was kind of following a trend rather than spearheading one, but still made what to me are some of the best records. If I were going to pick one, my runner-up would be this one, Pangea. This is hard to get in the United States for a long time because it only came out in Japan at the time. It was actually an evening show, if I'm not mistaken, and the afternoon show of the same day was released as this, Agartha, which is also only Japanese at the time. These are both Four Men with Beards issues that are relatively easy to get on this side of the, I almost said this side of the Atlantic, this side of the Pacific now. If I pick one Miles Davis, though, the one that this loses out to is the one that we're listening to right now. And that is Get Up With It. This is just a badass record. This thing is just fucking so heavy. One song on here, I'm actually going to go ahead and needle drop. I'm going to bump that. You hear that guitar in there? I like the beat, the forward drive. The one I really want to play though is this one. This is Rated X, it's called. When I used to make tapes for people, like if someone said, oh, you're an old hard rock, you need a tape of some of the obscure stuff you like, I used to sneak this tune in there. Because people go, holy shit, Miles Davis, what the fuck, you know? So this one does have some sort of slower ones that are also very good, like He Loved It Madly, and the other side too, or the other sidelong jam, which is Calypso Frelimo, I think it's called. But it has heavy shit like this, and like Mtume is another one on here. This is just a great record all the way too. If you're new to this shit, you get this, you listen to sides 2 and 4, and then when you've assimilated those a little bit, come around to sides 1 and 3. That right there is education. Listen to this shit. So dark. Alright, so of course it'd be remiss if I didn't talk about one of my all-time favorite bands, Funkadelic. Again, it was close between these two records. First one, the third one. I could also put in Free Your Mind, Your Ass Will Follow. You know, given the drugs they're reputed to have been on during that one, it really fits right in. But this one is tempting to lean towards because of the long guitar solo at the very beginning. There was actually a radio station in Cleveland that used to play that every Saturday at midnight. Maggot Brain, obviously. But that's kind of abstract. This was the very last track, Wars of Armageddon, with all these weird sound effects. And the rest of it is almost more soul than you sort of get with a lot of stuff. The songs are great. It definitely has a really sort of psychedelic, like, kind of drug-addled tinge to it, and things like the drum sound in that. But because of that, I probably have to give it to this one, being more like a straight-ahead, like, almost psychedelic rock album. You know, this thing, yeah, you know, people know... This really doesn't have much relationship to the later stuff that George Clinton would do with like Parliament and that, and even the later Funkadelic records. And you know, I've got no beef with that stuff, but a lot of those records are a lot more like dancey, and this is just like straight up, just like balls out, kind of heavy shit. So this is almost a cheat because it's also a westbound like those early Funkadelics, but this is the Counts. Which I'll actually go ahead and needle drop. The Counts, I mean, really kind of seem to be taking some cues from Funkadelic. It's very similar as far as sound goes. It's maybe not quite as far out there as from the psychedelia standpoint, but as far as sort of the heaviness of it and the vibe and the way the songwriting is approached, there's a lot in common. This is a reissue. This has been reissued a couple of times, so it's not too hard to get. See, unfortunately, a lot of the easier stuff to find, like the Kool and the Gang records and the Earth, Wind and Fire records, aren't really the ones I would start you off with. I love that stuff. Don't get me wrong. You know, same thing. Curtis Mayfield, I mentioned, even some of Stevie Wonder's stuff. But if you're coming into this again from a hard rock perspective, which is what I'm trying to focus on here, I think you might get more out of this kind of a record once it fucking starts. I'm gonna skip over this intro. It's typically... Well, actually, that's a really kind of funkadelic-y intro, isn't it? That definitely has a little bit of a funk vibe, but the instrumentation, you got that really 70s organ that would be right at home on a fucking Deep Purple record. You hear that? The heavy bass in there? Fucking awesome. On sort of a similar note, I'm actually going to skip over that one. Sort of a similar note, there's this group, the Lafayette Afro Rock Band. This probably the brass heaviest of the lot that I've gone through here. Lots of trumpets. This is mostly instrumental records, so you know you'd have the brass taking the place of the vocals, but in most of these things. But again, as far as the groove that goes, it's more like this and less like sort of the straight ahead dance thing. You know what I'm saying? Sort of run out of words with this after a while, but this is another fucking great record. Again, originals are very hard to find, but there's a reissue that's pretty available. How many more do I have here? Alright, this is another one you'll find in the jazz section. This is Funky Skull by Melvin Jackson. This guy actually played with some kind of big names in jazz, but he made this record where he played the bass through all sorts of electronics. And even though this has its feet pretty firmly rooted in jazz, the groove, like the vibe of it, is more along these sorts of lines, a little more slowed down, and the wah-wah on the bass is just like nothing you've ever heard before. Like the fucking effects he plays that thing through. This is really a unique record, no shit. I try not to overuse that, but this record, there's nothing else that sounds quite like it. I actually made a video a couple weeks ago and someone picked this out in the background, like from the other room, so that ought to give you a little bit of an idea. And then finally, I want to show this particular record by the Barcades. This is Black Rock. And again, I'm going to throw this one on for a sec. So you get the idea about the counts. Now the Barcades, they were, I'm drawing a blank. I think they were Otis Redding's backup band, actually. I may be wrong about that. But they made a couple of their own records. Probably their biggest hit was a tune called Soulfinger. And if you don't already know Soulfinger, which you probably do, what I don't want you to do is go out and say, oh, hey, Aaron said I'd like the Barcades, so here's a copy of Soulfinger. Let me check this out, because you won't like it. It's completely different. This record is fucking heavy. I couldn't believe it. You know, same deal. It's got the brass going on, but the vibe is just like total rock. There's lots of guitar in this thing too. They're on the Volt label. Fucking classic right there. Leave it open. The old Stax Inner. I love this shit.
Just so you know, we've got to end it soon because my battery's near dead.
Thanks for letting me know. It's the last one. Tell me you've never heard a rock album that starts out like this. Now listen to that. Well, this comes in with the brass and shit, so it'll ease you into the funk. But this might just be the best introductory record for being an honest-to-God funk band, man. No bullshit. First of all, look how awesome that cover is, actually. That's worth the price right there. But they're like, these guys are no shit. They're like real, they're the real thing, and they made this record. That's just unbelievable, man.